The sky churned with clouds, heavy and black, a storm rolling over the endless green expanse of the late Cretaceous world. Lightning forked above ancient forests, illuminating colossal ferns and towering conifers swaying like titans in the wind. Thunder cracked, echoing across the swamps and inland seas that stretched beyond the horizon. This was a violent world, beautiful and deadly, where life fought for every breath. In a tangle of cycads and rotting logs, movement stirred. A leathery mound, cloaked in damp leaves and mud, quivered with life. A nest hidden beneath foliage for weeks was awakening. The first egg cracked, then another, jagged lines splitting across shells the size of melons. Tiny claws tore through, and a wet snout pushed free, glistening under the storm's flicker. The first hatchling emerged, a trembling creature with oversized eyes, stubby arms, and jaws lined with needle teeth. The nest exploded with hisses and squeals as more hatchlings fought their way into the world. But in this birth throe of life, death lurked close. Shadows moved at the forest, edge-to-leak shapes, with curved sickle claws tapping the mud. Dromaeosaurs, raptors, their feathers shimmered like oil in the rain. Eyes glinting with hunger, the mother returned. She came like thunder, on legs thick, muscled, immense. Her jaws parted, and the forest seemed to shrink around her. 40 feet of muscle and bone stepped into the clearing, each stride sinking deep into the sodden earth. Her skull, longer than a man, swung low, teeth glistening in the stormlight. The raptors froze. One hissed, and then they scattered, vanishing into the trees like phantoms. The queen of this land lowered her head, nostrils flaring over her squirming brood. Her eyes, umber pools burning with primal fire, scanned the forest. Satisfied, she sank into the mud, curling her tail around the hatchlings. The storm raged above, rain slashing down, lightning cracking. But here, under her towering frame, they were safe. For now, days bled into weeks. From a clutch of 12, only 3 remained. The forest floor was a war zone of predators, snakes, giant lizards, even other tyrannosaurs. The young learned quickly. Stay close to the shadows, hide, eat, grow. The smallest one vanished one night, leaving only a streak of blood in the mud. Another was dragged into a swamp by a Sarcosuchus, its squeals echoing before the water stilled. And then there was one. He was stronger than the rest. His name would never be spoken. For this world knew no names, but he was something raw, something forged in hunger and fear. His mother fought for him, killed for him, fed him with meat torn from giants. But even queens fall. One dawn, the ground shook with roars as a rival female came a mountain of rage and bone. They clashed like gods. Teeth ripped flesh, tails whipped trees to splinters. The earth turned to red mire beneath their fury. When it ended, the stranger limped away, broken, and his mother lay still, her eyes dull as stone. The young tyrant crept from the shadows, mud caking his scales. He pressed his snout to her flank. Warmth faded. The forest was silent but for the whisper of rain. And then he was alone. The world sharpened its teeth. Hunger gnawed like fire in his belly. He hunted insects, small lizards, scavenged rotting corpses left by greater beasts. Time passed, and he grew. Muscles coiled under his hide, his legs became pillars of strength. The air smelled of blood and wet earth. And he learned its language, the trails of prey, the stench of death, the pulse of fear. He stalked the fern thickets where hadrosaurs grazed in herds. They were titans compared to him, but hunger makes killers patient. He waited, silent as stone, until a calf strayed too far. Then he struck, a blur of power and teeth. A scream split the forest, and the chase began. The calf thrashed, the herd thundered, and the young tyrant clamped down, feeling life spill into his jaws. Warm, rich, his first true kill. From that day, the river carried whispers of a shadow growing in strength. Seasons turned. Storms carved new rivers. Fire swept the plains. The tyrant thrived, crushed raptors in his jaws, shattered bone with bites that split the air like gunfire. Scars mapped his hide, trophies of battles fought in the green cathedrals of this lost world. He was no longer hunted. He hunted everything. He ruled the floodplains where the great herds drank. Ankylosaurs, plated like tanks, learned to fear the tremor of his steps. Triceratops wheeled their horns at the scent of his musk. Even other tyrants kept their distance, for in his eyes burned the storm that birthed him. But even kings know fear. One evening, the earth groaned. A sound deeper than thunder rolled across the land. Birds burst from the trees in screaming clouds. Far to the west, a plume of black rose like a spear into the heavens. The ground quivered beneath his claws. He lifted his skull to the sky, tasting ash on the wind. The air felt wrong thick, heavy, alive with something unseen. The sun bled red through a haze of fire. Still the law of tooth and claw endured. Life burned brightest before the dark. The tyrant hunted like a god of war. He brought down a trike in a battle that shook the earth horns, raking his flank, his jaws crushing its spine in a spray of crimson. He roared over the corpse, a sound that rolled for miles, a challenge to the stars themselves. And then the night came, the night the sky fell. It began with a scream that was not of earth, a tearing cry that split the heavens. A star burned across the void, brighter than the sun, trailing fire and death. The forests glowed with its fury. Then the impact, light beyond light, a roar beyond roars, and the world shattered. Mountains buckled, seas rose like beasts. Fire rained from the heavens as forests became oceans of flame. The tyrant ran not in fear, for fear was beneath him, but because the ground itself fled. Rivers boiled, trees exploded. He thundered through curtains of ash, his scales seared by firestorms, his lungs clawing for air thick with death. He roared against the dying sky, a sound drowned by the voice of the end. And then, silence. The age of giants was broken, the jungles withered, the seas crawled back, and shadows swallowed the land. Among the bones of his kind, half buried in the ash of a murdered world, the tyrant lay. Eyes dim, breath ragged, the last echo of a kingdom that would never rise again. But in that stillness, in the whisper of wind over stone, his name lived in words. But in the blood memory of every creature yet to come, apex, tyrant, king. The earth turned cold. The stars looked down on an empty throne. And so ended the reign of the greatest hunter the world had ever known.